You are listening to 52 Ways, a podcast by Scott and Christian Milford.
This is how you love one another.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Yes. So you've probably never learned that word for word, have you?
Yes.
Yeah. It's the King James version, I'm pretty sure, of
That just reminded me. I have to memorize stuff.
Matthew 7:12. What's that?
Memorizing that stuff.
Welcome, everybody, to the 52 Ways podcast, where we're going to talk about the golden rule today, if you haven't figured that out already. My name's Scott, and this is Christian.
Yes.
Say hello to the nice people, Christian.
Hello.
To the nice people.
Hello, nice people. Not the mean people. I don't like them.
Say all this.
Joking. I love them.
Yeah. You even love the mean people?
Yep.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to love mean people, but we're supposed to. That's right. Yeah. So, Christian, a lot of those phrases that are kind of normal to me as a 48-year-old are not normal to you as a 17-year-old.
Well, I generally know it. Actually, I have to memorize the Lord is my shepherd at school.
Yeah.
So I don't know that also. So
The Lord is my
shame
shepherd.
on me.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that
I also don't know the Lord's Prayer.
you don't.
No.
You are a non-Catholic.
Shame on me. Yeah, I
You
know.
really don't?
I
Oh
don't.
my gosh.
All I know is
Our Father.
Our Father, thou art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, or blessed?
Yeah. Hallowed be thy name.
Hallowed be thy
I've heard
name,
both.
thy kingdom come, thy will be done as on earth as it is in heaven.
Good.
Bless us, O Lord, our daily bread. That's all I know.
Give us
Give us, O Lord, our daily bread. Something about trespasses.
and forgive us our
Our
trespasses,
trespasses
as we
have trespasses against you.
as we forgive
Others
those
have
who
trespass
trespass
against us.
us, and lead us not
I don't know the rest.
into temptation. So maybe this is like I failed as a father moment.
No, not at all.
But
We're not Catholics. We're
yeah.
Baptists.
As I was
We don't memorize that
raised
stuff.
I was raised Catholic, and yeah, I guess that probably plays into a lot of the reason why I know that prayer. Like
Hey,
the back
Dad,
of my hand.
don't tell Mom that I don't know that.
Well, if she listens to this, you're so busted.
Yeah, I know.
Well, hey, so okay, regroup. There's a lot of other things that you don't have memorized. There's a lot of things I don't have memorized, and that's normal, and that's fine. But hey, we're going to talk about the golden rule because we are on a mission to help remind Christians of this really important thing that Jesus taught us or told us that we had to do, which is to love others the way that he loved us. And he said that others will know that we are his followers, not by how much we know, how much scripture we have memorized, like we just were doing, but by the way we love. That's the way that people will know that we are his followers. So Christian and I here on a mission this year to help remind Christians and teach ourselves, how can we do that better? How can we love others better the way that Jesus, not better than Jesus, but do a better job of loving others the way that he loved us? How do you think it's going so far, Christian?
Good.
Good talk.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Genius. Can you say more than one word? Like really, what do you think about the podcast so far and the way that our conversations have gone?
Oh yeah, that. It's been going pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. That was a little better.
We're learning how to love people.
Yeah. Well, and I think as we get into these specific scriptures, we're just like, wow, we're only 7 chapters into Matthew, the first of the 4 gospels, and we have already gotten into a lot and some really heavy topics. Go back and listen to previous topics if you haven't been following, because there's some really good stuff here, and today is no different. So let's jump into this. We're just going to read from the New Living Translation here. Oops, where'd it go? Here we go. So the timing of Jesus saying this, on some levels, it kind of seems like a standalone verse that we're still in the Sermon on the Mount, and he's given us pearls of wisdom in every sentence. But he comes out of this time where he's telling us how to pray, and then he says, parents, if your children ask for bread, do you give them stones? If they ask for fish, do you give them a snake? Well, of course not. And he says, you know how to give good gifts. And if you know how to give good gifts and you're sinful, don't you think your Father in heaven really knows how to give good gifts? And, so many of you are familiar with that passage. And then all of a sudden, boom, the golden rule. So, I think that begs the question, so do unto others well, this is a New Living Translation. Do to others whatever you would have like. Boy, I'm screwing this up. You want to read it, Christian?
No, I can't.
Okay.
I
Do
need
to others
glasses.
whatever you would like them to do to you. This is the essence of all that is taught in the law and the prophets. So it's like he's wrapping up everything that's taught in the law and the prophets into this one statement that's so familiar to all of us. Do to others whatever you want them to do to you. And so why did he do that right here, coming out of this thing where he talks about how God the Father gives such good gifts? There's got to be a connection there. So I have a thought.
I don't.
You don't have a thought?
Talk away.
Talk away. All right. I know I talk most of the time, so I don't want to like dominate the mic more than I already do. So I think the connection here is, God loves us. He gives us the gift of love. He gives us the gift of his son, Jesus. He gives us everything and gives and gives and gives. And then we sin against him, and then he gives more and he gives more and he gives more and he gives more. And so what he's doing is he's loving us because that's what he wants us to do for him. And just because he is love and he loves his children, and, but he gives us love because he wants and expects and hopes and everything else for us to love him in return. And so that's the essence of the golden rule. Do to others what you want them to do for you. So he's practicing what he's preaching here.
So it's a trade.
Yeah. And that is an interesting thing. Is it a transaction? And I don't think it is.
And is that if it is a transaction, then is that love?
Right. And I think that's where legalism can come into play, where if you just do the act, you give somebody something because you think that that's what you're supposed to do based on what the golden rule says, then I don't know that you're really fulfilling the expectation of the golden rule. I think it has to, again, like everything else we talk about, it's a matter of the heart, not just the behavioral
I think
transaction.
Our actions have to we have to do those outward actions in order to have in order to do it from the heart eventually.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I just read something today, actually. Where was that? I think it was Lucy, my youngest daughter, his youngest sister, had something in a book or somewhere where it talked about how it's foolish to recognize that something should be done, but not to do anything about it. And so it's the same kind of idea. The action, the behavior is critical here. I mean, you don't want to be like, oh, look at that guy. He's starving. Boy, if I was starving, I'd want someone to bring me some food, and then you don't bring him food. I mean, the action is essential here. But if your only purpose for bringing him food is because you're checking a box and you are just doing what you're supposed to do, that's where legalism comes into play.
Yeah. So I think there's a big question that I would have for you. I know that
Bring it.
We've kind of been, I don't know what our family has done about this topic, but I know there are poor people who like ask for money on the streets.
Yeah.
With this golden rule, it seems like we should give to them. I know that we as a family normally haven't given money per se, but we normally, like if we have like, I don't know, like a sandwich that we've been eating that day. I really don't know.
I don't think we'd give him a half-eaten sandwich.
Not a half-eaten. Like if we have like an extra sandwich, like some fries from Chick-fil-A that we haven't eaten yet or something like that, then we would normally give them that because we don't want them to spend it on like drugs or alcohol or smoking, just things like that. So.
Yeah, I remember the one time we had just pulled through Panda Express. Do you remember this story?
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't? Yeah, we were just pulling out of Panda Express, and I was getting back on the highway, and there was a lady there, had a sign that said something about, I need food, I'm hungry, and I had an extra order of orange chicken. And that stuff's amazing.
It's so good.
It's so good. And I was like, hey, perfect timing. I've got a extra order of orange flavored chicken here from Panda Express. And she's like, oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm a vegetarian.
Okay.
I was like, oh, a picky, pet beggar on the corner.
Person.
Yeah, right. But the point though is that you have a generous heart, and if I was hungry and on the street and homeless, I would hope someone would bless me with some
vegetarian food.
Vegetarian.
How dare you offer chicken?
But I think that and we've done the thing before where we've had like a package that we've taken downtown St. Louis and tried to give out.
That was fun.
And that was a little scary because we got swarmed by about 50 homeless people. 50? Well, there was a lot of people. There was a massive number of people.
So we like gave them a blanket and like a gooey butter cake and what else? and then Dad was driving, so he pulled up on Mom's side, and Mom was like, "Why are you pulling up on my side?"
It was intimidating
because there were a lot of people there.
Yeah, and there were a lot.
So we just gave them a blanket and the gooey butter cake, and we just drove.
And they ended up being the ones that came up to our window and we talked to. They were very nice. Of course they were. And it's not always the case. There are some that aren't very nice, but so, the point here is have a heart to help when you can. And in the context of homelessness in America, in big cities, you have to be careful. There's some safety issues that are important to keep in mind. Does that answer that? I mean, we try to do what we can, but we certainly don't give money or food to every single person we see.
Should we give money to people on the street?
Yeah.
Is that what do you think?
I don't think it's a bad thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's better to have like goodie bags and care bags and ready to hand him a bag versus handing him a $5 bill. I think that's better. Yeah. And there's also the thing where a lot of people in St. Louis, apparently, where they're not really homeless, they just pretend to be so that they can, make money every day and they go back to their house somewhere in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And that's
seen those videos on YouTube.
Yeah. That's wild. And they can make enough money to live on, I guess. But so, you never know, but our job isn't to know. Our job is to care. Our job is to be generous. And if we get taken advantage of once in a while by a dishonest homeless person in the context of this conversation, then I think worse things could happen. I don't think that's the end of the world.
I'm not talking about like a dishonest homeless person. I'm talking about a genuine homeless person, but makes wrong decisions with the money that they get.
Yeah.
That's not us getting scammed by a homeless person. That's them making a bad decision based off of something that we gave them.
Yeah. So like, what about the Good Samaritan story? Like, what if the Good Samaritan had taken that guy to a hotel and found out later that it was all a scam and he wasn't really hurt? It was all makeup that he had on his body from pretending to be beat up.
I don't think they had makeup for blood.
They probably didn't. But it was animal blood or something. Like, let's just say it was a whole scam. Would we think less of the Good Samaritan for doing what he did?
No.
So I think it's always honorable and Christ-like to help when you can help. So I think that's the main point here. Anyway, back to this idea. So I think this exists. I think this. Are we good? Yep. I think this verse exists right here because God it's demonstrating how he is practicing the golden rule. He loves us because he wants us to love him in return, not in a transactional way, but in an authentic desire to have a relationship with us. So I think that's why it's here. You good with that? Any other discussion there?
No.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna throw one thing. So yesterday at church, Pastor Jeff had a funny little anecdote that he shared about the King James version. And since this golden rule is mostly known by the King James version, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which Christian barely knew at the beginning of this episode. Since that's the case, it reminded me of the King James thing, and he had this funny story about a guy that I guess was at a church he used to pastor, and they were debating King James. Well, I couldn't say that for some reason. King James versus other newer translations, and the guy's like, "Listen, I'm all King James because if King James is good enough for Paul, it's good enough for me." He thought that the Apostle Paul spoke in King James language, which is just hilarious.
Not true, guys.
So anyway, but it is funny though. Some verses we do tend to use the King James version. That's why it was weird for me to read this one on just a minute ago. It was hard to read this verse in a different version. So anyway, little funny anecdote. But so Christian, did you know that this concept, the golden rule concept, do unto others, Jesus wasn't the first to say that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
so
I'm surprised.
Other religions,
really fake.
Yeah, that was kind of fake. Other religions and other teachers, even Jewish teachers before Jesus had used this concept. So this was not a new concept, but it was a new perspective on the concept. So in part because of the preceding verse where God is giving us the gift of love, his love for us, and we're to love him in return. But the other part of it is a lot of times it would be positioned in the negative. So it would say, like, don't do to somebody what you don't want them to do to you. But Jesus flipped it around, and this is him turning everything on its head. He flipped it around and said, do to others what you want them to do to you. So a different perspective that he brings, just like he's doing with pretty much everything that he teaches here on the Sermon on the Mount. So I love that. And the other thing that comes to mind is, you ever read the book Love Languages? Oh, Reese got it for you for Christmas, didn't she?
I read the first 2 pages.
Did you? You haven't finished it?
We were watching I Love Lucy while I was reading it. So you know which one's better. Yeah,
we love I Love Lucy. But no, that book is really amazing. You really should read it. His sister got it for him. But it really is amazing. And if you haven't read it, I'm sure most of you have, but the simple concept is that not everybody feels loved the same way based on what the other person does to show love. So some people feel the most loved when they get words of affirmation, or when somebody does acts of service for them, or gives them a hug, like physical touch. What are the other ones?
I forgot.
Yeah, I can't remember the other couple. I'm forgetting there.
Oh, wait. Physical touch. Words of affirmation.
Acts of service. Gifts.
Gifts. And
there's one more. Comment below. Generate some comments here. See what I did there?
That won't work.
Yeah. Comment below to remind us what the other one was. But so I think that always comes to mind for me when I think about this passage, because, you know, it is do unto others what you would want them to do to you. But I think you also have to think about who it is that you're about to do something for. And if you know they don't like chocolate, don't give them chocolate, even though you might love chocolate. Right?
Yeah, like, don't give my sister like a pasta because she's gluten-free.
Yeah, she's
That'd
gluten-free.
be stupid.
Yeah, it would be like, well, thanks a lot for this. Thanks for the nice gesture, but I can't eat it. Like, I wouldn't want somebody to give me something that I'm allergic to.
Yeah.
So this idea is less of a like tit for tat, or less of a transactional, you know, it's always like what I would want, I'm going to assume the other person wants. And because really at its essence, what I want people to do for me, if I'm hurting, I just want them to care, you know. I want them to use their judgment in the moment and think about what is it that's going to be their best way to care for me, to love me, to comfort me, or whatever. It's not that I want them to think about their favorite movie and say, hey, come over and watch, you know, whatever that favorite movie is. I might hate that movie. I have a friend that loves zombie movies. I don't want to go watch a zombie movie.
Boring. Actually, I really like them.
You like zombie movies?
No, I don't.
I think you just like zombies if it's in a Minecraft context, don't you?
No.
You don't? Okay. So I think I think we often will take this verse as simply doing exactly what you want somebody to do for you, and assuming that the person that you're about to show love to, assuming that that's what they want as well. But I don't think that's the spirit of this. I think the spirit of it is, man, I want people to care for me, so I'm going to care for somebody that same way, in whatever way is relevant for them. Yeah?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And sometimes it's not just like a specific movie or a piece of chocolate. Maybe it's just more like, you know, if it's a big situation that's going on, I would want someone to help me think through it and help me like see it from my perspective and not rush to judgment on what's going on with it. So it's not always like a transactional thing. It's also just like a way to help process through situations and not rush to judgment on things. So it doesn't have to be something tangible. It can be an intangible thing. Anything going through your head, Christian?
Nope.
Are you sure?
I'm just very tired.
You're just very tired?
Yep.
Didn't this come up a lot in these podcasts, how you're so tired? Mm-hmm. Why are you so tired?
Because I'm sitting down.
Okay. Well, you've had a busy day. You've written a paper. You practiced violin.
That's about all.
Yeah, you sorted through some trading cards or something. You had a big day. You cleaned out the back of the old truck.
Oh, I did do that. That took forever.
So let's see, a couple more things. So Matthew 22, which is obviously a few chapters down the road, it's where Jesus says to love, he gives us the new commandment. And he says, you've heard that love God with all your heart and soul and mind, but I give you a new commandment, love your neighbor as yourself. And it's like, whoa, what? And then of course they say, who's your neighbor? And that's when we get into Good Samaritan. So this is kind of a precursor. This one verse that it just kind of is thrown in there. It's a precursor to what Jesus is going to elaborate on a whole lot more a little bit down the road in Matthew 22 when he gets into all that. But this is really consistent. And the second half of this, which we haven't talked a lot about, is when he says, this is the essence of all that is taught in the law and the prophets. So it's almost like this is the fulfillment of the law, the way Jesus came to fulfill the law. So if you want to wrap everything Jesus taught us about how to love one another, a lot of it is right here. Do to others what you would want them to do for you. Love others the way that you love yourself. And we're all pretty good at loving ourselves. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's the essence of what I had.
Okay.
Did you have anything?
I don't have that much to put in.
That's all right. That's all right.
I think it's just kind of self-explanatory.
It is. It's a simple one. But man, I always think about how we get so wrapped up in the minutia of Christianity and theology and all the complex things that people argue and write books about and debate.
Like indirectly just like hitting me in the face.
Yeah, because you do get caught up in the minutia of things.
No, not at all.
And we need people to do that. I mean, those are important issues as well. But I just never want us, and that's why we're doing this podcast. I don't want the world of Christianity to forget what Jesus said was most important. It's not Calvinism versus Arminianism. It's not creation and young earth and versus old earth. I mean, it's just not that. That is not what's most important. If you'd ask Moses about young earth versus old earth, what do you think he would have said? If you'd ask Paul about young earth,
whether it's an older, never mind.
Yeah, well, it just would have been like, what are you talking about? And you ask Paul the same thing. What are you talking about? It just didn't matter. But we've turned these things into like they matter more than what Jesus said matters, which is this: the golden rule, loving one another. So that's our mission here, is to remind Christians that this really is the most important thing. And if you find yourself getting wrapped up in a lot of other stuff and you're not knocking it out of the park when it comes to this, well, you got some work to do. We've all got some work to do. None of us are knocking it out of the park. But we're going to keep at it here week after week. Would love to come and share more about this with your church or your organization. So you can email us if that's the case. Send an email to 52wayspodcast@gmail.com. Yes. 52wayspodcast@gmail.com. You can send that email and I'd be happy to respond. Put a comment down below. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please give us a rating and write a review. That goes like so far in Apple promoting the podcast and letting other people see it and hear it. So please help us out. We want to get this thing out there. We want to do some good in our world, all in the name of Jesus. So last chance.
Bye.
All right. Be well, my friends.
Your love.